Hey guys, it's Sherlock here. Today we're going to be looking at an in-depth speedrunning guide in Starstone Barrows. This is going to be at the highest level of PvE, but I will give you some alternative options if you're just getting into speedrunning. I just want to give a big shout out to the Barcodes team. That's Heywood, Mills, Whodis, Cronicc, and Dusty, as well as Cori and Hrodgir for allowing us to use their VODs in these videos and showing you what it's like at the highest level of PvE. This video is made for New World Build's website, so if you're looking for any more information, please check out the website link in the description. We're trying to keep the website ad-free, so if you want to support us, check out our Patreon. You can also support us by subscribing, giving us a like, or coming over to our Twitch, where we kind of cut loose a bit and you can pick my brain on any of your questions. Links to all of these will be down in the description. The most important part of a run is your team composition, ensuring you have enough rends, weakens, clumping, and crowd control, while keeping up high DPS as a team. As a tank, you can choose from a range of main hand options. Sword and Shield, Greatsword, or Hatchet are the main options. Favorite option at the moment is Greatsword. This is mainly due to its utility, defensive abilities, and it's just a fun weapon to play. Your most important weapon really is your Warhammer. You're going to want to take Clear Out, Shockwave, and Wrecking Ball. With these three abilities, you can CC lock mobs in place, increasing the survivability of the entire team. By using an ability and then 2 to 3 light attacks before your next ability, and repeating this pattern should give you an almost 100% stun uptime. As the healer, your best choice is Lifestaff Void Gauntlet. You should really be thinking of your Void Gauntlet as your primary weapon. You want to use the Void Blade as your main source of damage, and between refreshing precision and refreshing frailty, it helps get your abilities back up and keep a high Oblivion uptime. For your third ability, you'll look at taking Scream, with Putrefying Scream on the Void Gauntlet, as the last boss has a healing phase that the disease will help reduce the amount of healing it comes back with. There is a build you can take with points in both Scream and Rupture, and you'll switch between them depending on the situation. The Spear Great Axe DPS. This player will look at having both Enfeebling Skewer and Enfeebling Maelstrom, keeping up the weakens and ensuring the survivability of the tank and the rest of the team. Using the Spear for its high ring capability and as your main DPS weapon. The Great Axe is the key grouping weapon in your team. The Maelstrom and the Gravity Well ensure your team is essentially fighting a single mob, and your Reap is used to bring anything closer in that doesn't want to clump. Ideally, if there's archers just off in the fray, use that to pull them in before using a Grav Well, and that will get everything nice and tight. Great Sword DPS. This is your hack and slash DPS, throwing around big numbers with its heavy attacks. It has the utility of Rupture for grouping mobs. The secondary can either be a Great Axe or a Warhammer, depending if your team needs better clumping or more CCs. With the Greatsword, you really want to be using your rotation between your Relentless Rush and your dodges. Keep up your empowers. The standard rotation is to use a Relentless Rush into a dodge, 3 heavy attacks, another dodge, and then go back through that same rotation, using your Skyward Slash on cooldown for the extra rends. The Blood Rapier DPS. This DPS has the highest DPS in the game, but unfortunately comes with almost no utility. This can be paired with either a Void Gauntlet or an Ice Gauntlet depending on your team and personal preference. It is also recommended that they bring a blunderbuss with plague splitting grenades for the additional disease on the last boss. Within Starstone Barrows, there is 3 main skips that need to be done. You will need to choose who will do these skips prior to your run, as they require a special setup. I'll go over this more in depth during the run. The first one is done at the beginning of the run by a DPS with a Fire Staff and a Rapier. This Rapier has a custom skill tree different to the Blood Rapier tree. While it is preferred for the Rapier to do this, it does require the player to be capable of respecking the tree very quickly. It is possible to choose another DPS with a simple gear swap to do the skip as well. The next 2 skips are after Simon Grey and after Foreman Nakashima. Here you will have your Greatsword player use a hatchet offhand and get ready to run. Starstone Barrows contains both ancient and lost mobs, so you'll want to make sure that you can have both ancient and lost trophies up, as well as bringing both types of coatings and ward pots. As always, you want to start off with an Ice Wall for the initial haste. You then have a DPS running through first with the Rapier and Fire Staff with Fletch and Riposte on it. What they're looking at doing here is making sure they're the first to run out past all the mobs so they have aggro, ensuring that the healer doesn't put any heals on anyone, as this will draw aggro off of that DPS. They want to run down the stairs, through the hallway, and tuck in around the corner while shooting the mobs further down the room. Once everything is aggroed and running in towards them, they want to either use Fletch or Burnout to get back out, running back towards the start of the dungeon. Here you can use some of your Fire Staff abilities to hold aggro while doing a loop back around. It's important that your team keeps you updated on the opening of the door so you can loop back around to meet them there. Keep using your Fletch and your Burnout for mobility, ensuring that you don't get stuck on any mobs. As the tank, you want to make sure you're second in line running through. You want to open up with a Shockwave. You then want to hold aggro facing towards the bridge. This here allows your team to safely be on the door side, getting consistent backstab damage, and be able to open the door without being interrupted. The DPS here really want to focus on getting tight grouping, hitting those grab walls and maelstrom, so then the tank can CC everything in place as you are down 1 DPS. As the healer, do ensure that you're not dropping any heals as you're doing the skip, as you will pull aggro. Once you get down to the door and your tank is opened up with shockwave, look at dropping all 3 of your heals and then start opening the door. Just remember you are down 1 DPS here, so try and keep your heals up, but your main focus is just getting that door open as quickly as possible. Once the door's open, you want to move on through. The tank wants to use a shockwave on the mobs up in the center. This here will just delay them slightly, allowing everyone to get through safely. When you're running at the laser, there's actually a crack just at the top of the stairs. If you're in light armor running full pace, you can dive when you hit that crack and then do a forward roll, and that'll be the perfect position for you to get under the laser safely. Ideally, you'll have 2 people doing the skip to go around and open up the lasers. This is due to the fact that the archer on the right is very dangerous and can easily kill one of you, and the other person can carry on around to pick up the staff and open up the lasers for the rest of the team. You can have one person sweep or use some CC on the archer, and it does make it safer. If you do go down here, don't stress, you won't lose too much time. The other 3 will go left and then sit on the ledge down the bottom to hide from the mobs. This section here gives the Rapier fire staff a chance to respec. You will have to do this very quickly. So if you're uncomfortable doing this, it may pay to get one of your other DPS to do the skip, and just have a gear set with a Rapier fire staff to be able to do the skip themselves. As it doesn't matter what their attributes are, they can switch to the gear set to do the skip, and then quickly switch back to their standard set. Once the team has the lasers unlocked and the stairs unfold, then you can then move up into the next section. As you move into the next section, do be careful of these lasers. There's nothing worse than dying to a laser. Now, if you're just getting introduced to speedrunning, you can pull this in 2 groups. So you can fight in between the 2 lasers. You can drag the ones from the lasers onto the 2 crawlers just on the other side and fight it there. Or you go full speedrun and you drag everything through to the Gnome mob. Now the tank should be ideally going in first here so they don't have to worry about re-pulling aggro. Their aim is right for the middle of that main clump where the Gnome mob is, opening up with a shockwave for some initial CC and saving some taunts for later as the crawlers come in late to try and pull aggro back from them. It's really important that your grab rolls here are nice and tight. You really want to be pulling those archers in, and as always, keep that grouping nice and tight so the tank can lock it down. The healer really wants to be wary of these crawlers coming in late as they can easily get jumped and killed, so maybe position yourself near the tank so they can CC these crawlers on the way in if the DPS miss them. Once the Gnome mob and the archer is down, you can move on. If you're newer to speedrunning, I would recommend cleaning the area up before moving on. It is now time to start moving up the stairs. This is a section that if you are newer to speedrunning, you may want to split this into 2. You can drag the mobs from the stairway up around the corner and line of sight them behind the pillar and fight that as a first group, and then you can move on to where the Gnome mob is and fight that as a second group. Once you get the hang of that, you can look at pulling everything up to where that Gnome mob is, like the barcodes do here, ensuring that 1 DPS grabs the gatherable on the way up. You actually want a DPS here to grab the door, as this area can be a little bit sketchy, just so the healer can focus on keeping heals up. As the tank, you want to open up with shockwave. Then you want to flick around to the other side, opposite to the way you entered from. This allows the DPS to easily reap in the archers and get the grouping nice and tight. If you have aggro, just tuck in around the corner slightly and you'll be able to line of sight anything into the clump. Try and get this nice and tight and clean. Once you have this cleaned up and the door is open, you can then move on. Coming up to the stairs, you want the tank to come in as quickly as possible. While this is happening, you want the healer, and possibly even your Rapier DPS, to shoot the 2 archers up on the stairway and then line of sight them back so they can run down the stairs into the clump. You then have your greatsword Great Axe hit the grab wall and clump it nice and tight. You don't necessarily need to actually line of sight in behind the pillar. Range mobs do have a max range, so you can just move backwards and it will line of sight them into you. This here will ensure a really nice tight clump, which will give you a very clean kill. There's 2 easy gatherables here, so if you need the extra points, make sure you grab these. Looking at moving on to Simon Grey here, he's a very standard boss, but it does pay to switch to some strike protection here. It can just help avoid getting one shot when he uses his overhead slam. He's got a few abilities you want to watch out for here, but nothing crazy. The main two is when he does a big slam, he will pull two hands up above his head and slam down. You really do want to either block or dodge this one, as if you get caught with it from behind as low DPS it can one-shot you, and as the tank it'll stagger you in place and CC you for a short amount of time. The next one is his Vomit Disease. This one here does tick you for a lot of damage and reduce your incoming healing. So as he's spitting on you, you want to look at rotating either clockwise or anti-clockwise, whatever your team is used to, about 90 degrees. And then usually by the next time he uses a spit, you can rotate again and it ensures your team is outside of it at all times. When Simon Grey is almost down, this is where you have your DPS that's allocated to switch the Greatsword Hatchet to start moving on a little bit earlier. Their goal here is to run in first, gather aggro of all the mobs all the way through into the next two rooms, and loop back on themselves to hold it while you guys kill the Gnome mob. And as you loop back past your team, you want to be using Berserk. This will help pull any aggro off that they may have accidentally pulled. You then want to drag all of the mobs back into where you're fighting Simon Grey and hold it here for a second to ensure that nothing is going to reset. Once you have these mobs back in Simon Grey's room, you will die here, quickly respawn, and then catch up with your team. The rest of the team here will be planting the candle to summon the Gnome mob as quickly as possible and then dragging them up into the corner up by the next doorway. The tank wants to be tanking this on the stairway side, as this stops the Gnome mob consistently moving backwards away from the team. If you're tanking this in a pug group, what you can do is slightly move backwards towards this doorway, and that will stop the Gnome mob continually moving backwards. It can be a lot safer. When it comes to the purple rings, you want to ensure that you're not dodging out of them, as this CCs your team in the circle. The main one you want to be watching out for is the one that looks like a spider web with them coming out from all directions. This is an animation that you want to be wary of and ideally block as much of the incoming damage as possible. Hopefully timing wise it works out roughly when you kill this Gnome mob that the DPS who did the skip will be catching up to you, as they need to do a skip in the next area as well. This one will be very similar to the one they just did, running in first, ensuring the healer doesn't drop any heals as they will pull aggro back off of this DPS, moving all the way up to the respawn and then doubling back on themselves, using a taunt on the way back past the team to pull any aggro off again. They then want to move back into the previous room, die in here, go back to the respawn, and then catch up to the rest of the team. The rest of the team wants to be fighting on these ghosts, ensuring you get tight grouping here with your Gravwell's Maelstroms, and you can lock these ghosts down really well with your hammer abilities as a tank. Dropping off this next platform, I usually like my Great Axe to go on first, as if you hit it right in the middle of this clump, you can grab everything into one ball. Then with the tank following up with a Wrecking Ball and the next CCs, you can really lock this down. You do want to make sure you use vines on these guys, as they will jump back in all directions. While this is happening, you have a DPS leave straight away to pick up the staff and move their way on up to the top to unlock the lasers. There is an easy gatherable to grab here too, so make sure you grab this one. This here allows it so the team, as soon as they're finished with this fight, can move on. Make sure one of your players grabs Obelisk key at the chest, otherwise you'll be unable to move on. Safety Officer Richards is up next. This here is one of the most dangerous fights within the dungeon, as he is a lost mob. You want to get your healer to shoot him over along with the crawlers and tuck up on this left hand side. You do not need to aggro the archers up over to the right, so just leave them there. As Safety Officer Richards comes in, you want to open up with a CC like a Wrecking Ball or a Shockwave as a tank, and then rotate back around to the side that you aggroed him over with, so the DPS can stay on the back of Safety Officer Richards and hopefully not get hit from his jump back and scream. Keep the communication up as the crawlers are coming in, as they are very dangerous. You want to CC them as they come in, otherwise they will jump onto your healer and kill them very quickly. The same player who grabs the obelisk key out of the chest will now need to place it in the obelisk to bless it, then follow the team down the hallway. This here is another large skip, but for the whole team. So everyone is going to be running all the way down to the end of this hallway. You're going to look at fighting at the top of the stairs here. Ideally as the tank, you want to be opening up and fighting on this left-hand archer that is then going to bring the rest of the mobs into you and allow it so the DPS only need to pull in the right-hand archer into the clump. You really want to focus your Gravell here and get this nice and tight, as it'll make this fight a lot cleaner. Your healer wants to drop all 3 heals and then move into the next section to bring Burnt Becca back to the team. You quickly burn this down and then move in to fight the next Gnome mob. As you run into this room, the player that has the bless obelisk key once to begin to open the final door. Once again, you want to get nice and tight grouping here. There is an archer on the right that you want to pull into the Gnome mob, and the tank really wants to focus CC here to stop him using his abilities. In this section, you've got two options. You can either get the healer or a DPS to run around the back and grab the extra Gnome mob. It is slightly riskier getting the healer to do it, but if it works off well, it will be quicker. When this Gnome is getting low, you want one person to run in towards the last boss, but don't enter the arena to start the animation, as this takes approximately 20 seconds until the arena gets locked. Starting his animation as the last Gnome mob dies normally has the right timing to ensure everyone makes it into the fight. Here you want to ensure that you are putting on your disease abilities, whether you're running a blunderbuss with plague splitting grenades, the void gauntlets with putrefying scream. You really want to ensure that the last hit on him when he goes down in the first phase is with disease, as it'll stop him coming back with full health and save you a lot of time. As a tank with this boss, it is very easy. You just want to slowly move backwards and you can easily dodge a lot of his abilities. As a DPS, if you are struggling in this section, look at putting some slash protection on. It will stop those one-shots when he swings backwards. If you just stand slightly on the opposite side that he's holding his sword, it does seem to be a lot safer. The first wave is pretty standard. He will spawn these bones on the ground, so it will spawn small minions. Do not worry about these, ensure you're just staying on the boss. When he is getting near to being down in this first section, make sure you communicate with your team. You really want to be using your disease abilities as that last hit to kill him. When he comes back, hopefully you've done it correctly and he is not at full health. If you get enough DPS down here, you can actually stop him from jumping. It can be very hard to do though. So if you do find you're getting to the stage where he starts jumping around, you can stop him jumping by shooting him between the eyes on the forehead, and it will knock him out of his jumping animation and he'll go into a status effect for a few seconds. Here you just want to focus big damage and try and kill him before he goes into his next jumping animation. Okay guys, I really do hope this has helped you and given you an insight into speedrunning in Starstone Barrows. If I've missed anything, let me know down in the comments. Please give us a like, subscribe. We will be keeping these guides updated as the meta shifts, so this won't be the last time you see me. I hope to see you guys over on Twitch and on newworldbuilds.com, and I hope you have a good day.